This took place almost exactly 8 years ago when I was 21 and a senior in college. I went to school in Boston and lived off campus in an apartment in a neighborhood full of college kids. For those of you who also went to school in Boston, I'm sure you know which neighborhood I'm referring to. I lived in an apartment with 3 other roommates. That was an old house that was split up into separate units, with 3 units in total, 1 on each floor. Our place was on the top floor, which I'm sure used to be an attic, since it had slanted walls in each room. Like many old houses in Boston, this one had 2 staircases, one main one in the front and a sort of service staircase in the back that had access to each unit and the back porch. The other 2 apartments had real doors to the back stairwell with deadbolts, but our door, which was in my roommate's bedroom, and worked out perfectly because he would go outside to smoke, had kind of a tiny hobbit door. It also worked out perfectly because he was short, and had only a latch lock and nothing else. Not the best security, to say the least. It was Christmas break and I was returning from an 8 to 10 hour drive away with my cat in tow, who wouldn't stop meowing for the whole ride. About a week before all of my roommates because I had to be back at work before classes started. Our neighbors in the other apartments were also all students who had went home for the holidays, and basically the entire neighborhood itself was empty for the same reason. As I arrived at probably 1 or 2 a.m., happy that I was finally home and didn't have to listen to incessant meowing. Have you ever tried to plead with a cat for your sanity? It doesn't work. I had a weird feeling and noticed a draft coming from my roommate's room. Turns out the hobbit door was busted wide open. Since we were all dumb college kids at the time and didn't have concern for our own safety, I assumed he just went out to smoke before leaving and forgot to shut the door behind him. I continued on to my room and let the kitty out, and noticed that my jewelry box was open, and then that every drawer in my dresser was open, and every drawer in the plastic drawers in my closet were open. I checked the jewelry box, and although I didn't own anything of value, nothing was taken. I go and check out my roommate's rooms and it's the same thing. Every drawer, box, and closet open, but from what I can tell, their contents remained untouched. The kitchen drawers with the silverware were left wide open too. Needless to say, I was pretty shaken and freaked out, since when you're that age you tend to think that nothing like that will happen to you, even if you live in the city. But from what I could tell, nothing had been taken from the apartment. Our TV was there, and my roommate's desktop. We all had our laptops while we were away. Sadly, we didn't really have much of value. A burglar broke into our house and decided we must have not had anything good to steal. I called the police and they filed a report. Of course, thinking the whole thing was funny and making a joke about it. Maybe they stole a fork from the silverware drawer because they were really hungry. Great dad joke. It turns out that after our first floor neighbors returned, they said they had noticed that the window off the front porch was left cracked open and unlocked, and their door leading to the back stairwell was open from the inside. So whoever it was went up to the 3rd floor and easily kicked a good old hobbit door open, and had fun looking at all of our crappy stuff. The best part that we learned from our neighbors is that before they left a brand new DVD of Gone with the Wind that one of them had received as a Christmas gift on the coffee table. They were 100% sure that it was not opened before they left, and they all left together since they were from the same hometown. The DVD had been opened and was in the DVD player, and they noticed that their couch cushions and pillows looked like somebody had been laying down. So too, whoever broke into my apartment decided that there was nothing good to steal, and then proceeded to kick back and watch an almost 4-hour cinematic masterpiece. Let's not meet. This happened some hours ago. To give you a bit of context, I'm a male in my early 20s, and I live in an apartment on the 2nd floor. I come back home from a New Year's Eve party around 6 a.m. I undress myself, text a couple of people, and then go to bed. All of this in a span of about 10 to 15 minutes. And then basically, as soon as I get into bed, I hear my doorbell ring. And not my actual door, but the gate to the apartment complex. Initially, I say forget it. It must be some drunk person or someone pulling a prank or being a dick. But then the guy keeps ringing very insistently. So I go on my boxers to answer the phone that is wired to the gate. I answer the phone and I hear a foreign-sounding guy that is trying to tell me something about a friend and keys and to let him in the complex. I think about it for a second and then I tell him, I don't really know you, so I'm not going to open the gate. I hang up and I go to bed again. They keep ringing very insistently, so I get up again and I go answer the phone, this time a bit angry, and I am greeted by a girl speaking perfect English. I live in Italy, and telling me in a very clear way that she is staying on the 5th floor and her friend has the keys, that she is a woman alone in the street and to come check it at the door if I don't believe her. She sounded very convincing, to be honest. Mind you, in this moment, I'm drunk, high and very tired, trying to weigh my options. What if she really is a girl alone on the street at 6 a.m., in the cold with all the drunk people going around? What if she isn't, though? Fortunately, even in my intoxicated state, I have the idea to go out on the balcony over the gate and check out who is in the street. I throw on my parka because it's pretty cold. And in my boxers, I go out on the balcony to have an absolute forget-you moment. There were 4 seedy-looking people, 2 male, 2 female if I saw correctly, right in front of the gate, talking quietly between themselves. And I yell at them. I shouldn't have done it. Oi, you want to come in? And immediately go inside to call the police and grab a knife. Yeah. The real scary thing is that my gate is not see-through. So if I went down, I wouldn't have seen outside, and as soon as I had opened the door, I would have been overpowered by them, and probably forced to let them in my apartment. This story pretty much ends there. Those people kept ringing the bell aggressively for another 15 minutes, while I took off the lights and went around my house like a drunken Rambo with a knife in my hand, checking periodically all the windows. I have windows on the internal courtyard and windows on the street, which they easily could have climbed, or so I thought. And then it all ended. I don't even know if the police saw anyone or came at all because I never heard from them, and I just went to bed after a solid hour of this. It was Christmas time. My wife and I were staying at her childhood home where her mother now lived all alone. Well, not if you include the cats. Meow. The house was on a quiet cul-de-sac in the suburbs. If you're picturing freshly mowed lawns, American flags, and empty sidewalks, you're picturing it right. It's a single-story home with an attached garage out front. The garage has 2 doorways apart from the electric garage door, of course. One leads to the garden and backyard. This has an old doggy door from their days with dear old Max, R.I.P. Max, that they had covered with a piece of nailed-in wood. That had always made me slightly uncomfortable before, but I figured it had been that way for years, so what's the worst that could happen? The second door leads to the kitchen. Hollow core. It could stop a mouse, not much else. Definitely not something that I wanted in. Or someone. We were asleep in my wife's childhood bedroom at the front of the house. 3 a.m. I was in that deep, dark recess of sleep. You know, you're in the diving bell, and you're submerged hundreds of meters below the surface in black water, protected from the real world by miles of nothingness. And then I heard it. The scream. What are you doing? It was my mother-in-law's voice echoing down the hallway. To me, lost in a sea of sleep, it sounded like a jet engine roaring past my eardrum. I bolted up. What happened next happened in a matter of seconds. But about that scream, even though I was dead asleep, I heard enough of it to make sense of the urgency behind it. This wasn't an, "Oh, you scared me" type of scream. This was different, and I knew it. Not consciously, but my lizard brain, that piece we retained from our primitive ancestors, knew something was wrong. I watch and read a fair amount of true crime, and this scream awakened that horrible fear. The one that says, "This can't really be happening to me, can it?" Honestly, in that second of the night, it sounded like someone was about to be murdered. You ever wonder if you're a fight or flight type of individual? I always have, and I came to know something about myself after this night. I'm a fighter. I leaped out of bed, growled, yes, growled in the manliest voice that I could muster, "I'm gonna kill you," and took off running. I tore open the bedroom door and ran into the hallway. There, at the end, I saw my mother-in-law, nightgown on, look of utter shock on her face, standing still. We make eye contact as I continue towards her, and then she turns her head, looks directly into the kitchen. I hurry past her and round the corner into the kitchen. The hollow core door is obliterated, shards everywhere. I look through the open frame and see the electric garage door is open. I push ahead. As I run into the garage, I hear it. The sound of someone hopping into a car just out of view. Just as I make it onto the driveway, I see a car peeling out from the sidewalk adjacent to the house. But the adrenaline is still pumping. And who am I to say no to adrenaline? So, like an idiot, I run barefoot after the car. I give a good go, but I'm no Michael Johnson, and even he couldn't catch a speeding car. It soon vanishes down the street and I'm left all alone. The police showed up within 3 minutes, which, I have to say, make me feel a lot more at ease with my mother-in-law living there. They took our statements. My mother-in-law said that she had heard a noise, the hollow core door being kicked in, and walked into the kitchen where she had encountered the burglar, a small framed woman. The police theorized that she was working as part of a team. Her job was to squeeze through the doggy door, kick in the hollow core, and open the electric garage door for her accomplice. According to the police, the burglars most likely thought nobody was home. Fortunately, my mother-in-law must have caught her off guard and scared her, in addition to my manly growl, of course. But it feels good to know that everyone was safe, and to learn that I guess I've got a little fight in me. And for the record, we bought the heaviest goddamn wooden door you would ever see to replace that hollow core. I would like to see a mouse try to get through that. This happened back while I was in college a couple years ago. Me and my roommates moved into a beautiful apartment our junior year of college. Our parents made it extremely clear that two small females living alone together was not ideal for some of the cheaper, shady neighborhoods close to our college. We attended a college in our state capital, so we were in a city environment, and had certain criteria we had to meet in order for us to live there, and for them to co-sign our leases as well. Lit sidewalks, keyed entry into the apartment building, a lit parking lot, X amount of blocks from campus, and so on. So we finally found one that fit our parents' criteria. Our apartment building had a keyed entry for both of the front of the building and the back gate that led to the fire escape. Our apartment was an end unit that led to the fire escape, so there was 2 deadbolt locks on it. We loved our apartment. We felt safe, we had fun, truly living the college experience. And then my roommate's boyfriend starts slowly moving his things into the apartment and staying there way more often than he should. I finally tell my roommate that if he wants to use the water, electric, and food that I help pay for, then he needs to pay for it too, including our rent. I tell her a 3-way split, or I'm paying only my rent and he can pay the entire electric, water, and trash bill. I think I'm being pretty fair, and even though her boyfriend doesn't have a job, that's not my problem. I work and go to college. I don't want to work at McDonald's. Yes, he actually said that. Excuses, completely garbage. If you want a place to stay, then to the Golden Arches you shall go, buddy. So instead, my roommate starts sneaking him in really late at night after I go to sleep, and he leaves on days that I'm home. While I'm in class, he's there, and then leaves before I come back. My schedule is extremely routine. Well, he can't have a key, so if my roommate is in class or at work, how is he getting in? He can't take my roommate's key because if he decides to leave halfway through the day, how will she get her key back? All good questions. The solution they had come up with is to leave the back door unlocked that leads to the fire escape, and then he can just jump the fence at the bottom of the fire escape to get back on the fire escape when he's ready to come back. Or stick a rock in between the door, whatever works for him. So I'm off of work and school one Thursday morning and decide I'm going to sleep in as long as I possibly can. My roommate and her boyfriend have already left for the day, so naturally they leave the door unlocked. I'm asleep like a pretty princess. It's about 10 in the morning when I hear the back door open to the apartment. I come to just enough to recognize the noise, realize it's my roommate or her boyfriend, and I brush it off and go try to drift back off. All of a sudden, I start hearing some creep through the apartment, wooden floors. It definitely doesn't sound like casual walking. It is clearly someone stepping slowly and quietly through the apartment. My door to my room is ajar just a sliver, but I don't see anything out of the door, and I'm honestly too tired to get up and look. A couple of minutes pass and I figure that my roommate and or her boyfriend are just being weirdos and I fall back asleep. I can't be sure how much time passes before I open my eyes, but it can't be too long. I wake up to my door opening. My back is to the door and I'm facing the opposing wall. I slowly start to turn over to see why my roommate or her boyfriend would dare wake me up from my slumber. And there he is. A burglar, in my room, next to the bed I'm currently laying in. A 6-foot-tall, 250-pound minimum burglar, unplugging my TV, about 5 feet from where I currently am. I immediately pretend I'm just shifting positions in my sleep, and continue to roll over with my eyes as shut as I could make them seem, still open enough to watch what was really going on. He hears me shuffling as I turn over, stops, looks dead at me, and luckily doesn't realize that my eyes are open just a tiny bit. He goes back to unplugging my TV, my DVD player, shoves it in a bag he's brought, like those bags from IKEA, and steals my change jar, and casually starts walking out the front door to my apartment, like he came in for a freaking cup of tea or something. After I hear the door shut, I immediately sprint out of bed, grab my phone, start dialing 911, all the while locking the back and front doors. The dispatcher is trying to calm me down. At this point, I am hysterical. I can't even catch my breath to tell her okay. Luckily, I told her my address before I started hyperventilating. Pause. I will take a second to commend the police department, both city and college, because they were there in less than 3 minutes. Resume. She tells me the cops are there, but they need me to go downstairs to let them in the building, because they don't have a key to the front door of the building. I am so afraid to open the door to my apartment and even look down the hallway. I'm about to walk to the front door and extend my arm out to the handle when I hear, "Ma'am, it's the police." As if I didn't get scared enough already. They yell through the door. I am paranoid because the dispatcher just told me that they couldn't get in, and didn't realize someone probably let them in downstairs. I asked the dispatcher to confirm that the people at my door are actually police officers. She tells me that they are at my door. Okay, cool. I open the front door and I collapse right there. My legs completely turn to jello and I just hit the floor. I blacked out for a brief period of time, but they held me up and sit me down on the couch. There are at least 10 officers in my apartment from both the city and college departments. When I look outside the living room window to the street below, there are 5 or 6 cop cars blocking the street. I later found out that they were doing a perimeter search around the immediate area. I'm being bombarded with questions now. I have to try to find out what's missing besides the stuff from my room. I'm crying, I'm shaking. This is not at all how I saw my day off going. I tell them that my roommate left the back door open for her boyfriend, and they inspect the back door and blah blah. The next thing I know, my roommate and her boyfriend walk in, and they both have the most dumbfounded looks on both of their faces. At this point now, there is a detective talking to me, and I'm giving my statement, giving a description of the burglar, the stuff missing, looking at mugshots, etc. I immediately stop talking to the detective, look up at both of them, and blurt out, "Somebody robbed us while I was asleep. He came into my room." My roommate looks me dead in the face and says, "My God, is any of my stuff gone?" That's really what you're asking me right now. If your replaceable stuff is missing. 2 officers take her and her boyfriend aside and talk to them while I'm finishing up with the detective. I call my then boyfriend and he comes over to help me pack my stuff to stay over at his house for a couple of days, which turned into staying until my lease at my place had ended, around 4 months. After failing to recognize any suspects in a lineup, the cops slowly start leaving. After they all leave, I call my parents to tell them what has happened, gather my things and head over to my boyfriend's house. My roommate and her boyfriend never once apologized. Not for leaving the door unlocked, but just a general, "I'm sorry this happened to you" type of apology. They never asked me if I was okay, if I wanted to talk, nothing. The day my lease ended was the best day of that entire year. I couldn't wait to get away from my roommate, her boyfriend, and that apartment. They never found the guy who robbed me that day. I didn't even care about the materialistic things. He robbed me of my safety and security, and it took a good amount of counseling to get that back. I'm also thankful he didn't try to attack me that morning. My friendship with my roommate was tarnished. I haven't spoken to her since. To this day, I don't sleep with my back to the door, and I always have a knife under my mattress.